Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our virtual Cafecito presented by Moms Clean Air Force, Ecomadres, and Corazon Latino. Tonight's conversation will focus on the passion and practicalities of voting in the Latino community. Our first segment features Latina moms in conversation with Ecomadres field organizers, discussing the power of the Latino vote, sharing their stories of voting, and empowering others to vote. This conversation, moderated by Corazon Latino's Nicole Randall, features Ecomadres organizers and moms Columba Sainz from Phoenix, Arizona, Cinthia Zermeno Moore from Las Vegas, Nevada, and Yaritza Perez from Orlando, Florida. If you have comments or questions, please enter them in the comments section of this broadcast, and we will do our best to respond on our social media platforms as they come in. And now I'll let these supermoms take it from here.
Hello, I'm Nicole Randall, Director of Strategic and Corporate Partnerships with Corazon Latino. I'm delighted to be with you today for this Cafecito and joined by three amazing women, all organizers, Ecomadres with Moms Clean Air Force. Thank you for joining us today, Columba, Yaritza, and Cinthia. We're going to be talking today about voting. In just 3 weeks, Americans will head to the polls and I hope be making informed choices about their future. We all must do our part to elect leaders who will protect our planet and ensure that we all, our families and our children, have clean air to breathe. So with that, let's dive in. Ladies first, could you each briefly introduce yourself? And if you want to start, Yaritza, go right ahead.
Hello, everyone. Thank you again for this opportunity to be able to speak on this platform. My name is Yaritza Perez. I am currently living in Orlando, Florida. I'm a proud mom. I'm a proud veteran. And I've been working with Moms Clean Air Force for just under 2 years now, but I've been doing a lot of work in the environmental space and just in the community space for a couple of years now.
Wonderful. Thank you. So nice to have you join us. And then Cinthia, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, I'm Cinthia and I'm in Las Vegas, Nevada. I have a 3-year-old boy. He's the reason why I am so passionate about our issue, climate change, and being involved, because I want to make sure that we protect the areas that I got to experience growing up in Las Vegas, like Red Rock, Lake Mead. I want to be able to have those same experiences that I experienced as a kid with my dad and my mom and my uncles. And it's just really important for me to protect our environment, and he's the reason why I'm in this fight.
That's wonderful. So glad you're here. And Columba, I see you have your little one with us. Can you introduce yourselves, please?
Yes, sure. My name is Columba Sainz again, and I am here with my baby, Eros. This is so important to me because I know the health of my children are really important, and I've seen firsthand the impacts of climate change. He's my little one, but I have Columba, who is 5 years old, and Alisa, who is 3.
Wonderful.
And I'm from Phoenix, Arizona.
That's great. I should mention too, I'm in Tucson, so we have that in common. And I do also have a daughter. She's doing her online learning right now. She's 8 years old and in 2nd grade. And I'm just so inspired by all of you, and I'm really glad that we're able to chat today. So I wanted to dive in. So one of the things that we wanted to chat about first is, as a Latina, why is voting so important to you? We know that the Latino community is a powerful community in the United States, and could be even more so if we're able to, turn out the vote full force. And so wanted to hear a little bit more about how that's important to you and what your plan is to vote and help ensure that your family and your friends and those in your circles are going to be voting as well. Yaritza, do you want to start?
Of course. So as a Latina, I know that it's so important for us to get out and vote. Latinos are disproportionately affected by climate change. We are disproportionately affected by a lot of social and environmental injustices in all of our communities. And we definitely have a loud voice, and there's so many of us, we come in numbers. how important is it for us to be able to have our voice heard in this election? We have a vital stake in this election, considering the fact that our kids are at 60% higher risk of suffering from asthma attacks or some sort of respiratory issues because of air pollution. And it's a time now is to be able to get out and vote and to speak and to get our voices heard about that. Because if we don't take care of our kids now, then, what sort of environment are we going to leave behind for them? And for me, it's super important because this is the first year that I have a 19-year-old. And so this is the first time that she's able to, like, she's of age to be able to vote. I need to make sure that she starts to be able to exercise her right as an American to have a voice and to make sure that she's making a decision that's going to essentially affect her in long term.
What are some of those conversations like that you've been having with her, kind of informing her of what that civic responsibility is like? Can you share some of your tips?
Tips. Drink lots of coffee, go for walks and exercises. So sometimes it can be a little bit stressful because of the type of information that the both of us are consuming separately and the kind of information and information that we're consuming together. Sometimes we're both dipping into different platforms and getting different biased views on a lot of different issues and a lot of issues that are affecting us both. So it does get frustrating sometimes because I know with that generation, like they're very much like, oh, mom, like I don't want to wear my mask, and they don't understand the importance because they're just too young, right? I mean, she hasn't really started to experience life and like all of the things that come with it, the haves and the have-nots. So it's important to show her that, like, something as simple as wearing a mask, that it's not just about her, it's how she's affecting the people around her. Being able to explain that to her in a way that, hey, like, if you go out and you're exposing yourself to a large group of people, just understand that, there's certain people in our family that you cannot be around for at least a couple weeks because we don't want to jeopardize their health. So it's like I said, it's stressful. It's so empowering, though, to be able to know that I can have these conversations with her, that I'm not, knife handing her and like getting military style. I'm not making her or demanding her to do a decision. I'm just doing my absolute best to be able to provide the most information for her from every angle, from every perspective. I try to get her involved with the community as much as possible so that she can see what sort of need we have here in Orlando, Florida, and in Florida in general, and what kind of effects that the decisions that she makes at this age, how that's going to look for her in the next 4 to 10 years. So it's important to have the conversations with your kid. It's also important to let them know that their voice is important and to talk to them. It's so important to know that they understand a lot of what's going on. They're sponges, even when at her, they're constantly consuming information. How important is it for me to empower her, to let her know that it's her decision that she's making? I can't make that decision for her. And my opinions are just that, they're mine. The best thing that I can do is to be able to educate myself as much as possible and let her know that, what she does today is going to have an effect on tomorrow. Hopefully it's a good effect.
That's so great. Good job, Mama. Cinthia, do you want to answer the same question?
Yes.
To you.
Yeah, as a Latina who was not born in this country and was brought here when I was only 2 months old, I didn't always have the right to vote because of where I was born. And I have been organizing my community since 2007 for different campaigns. And even then, I was a resident, but I wasn't a citizen then. And it wasn't until President Obama won the nomination that I was like, I need to get my act together and apply for my citizenship and become a naturalized citizen. So I was able, just months before the November election, I became a naturalized citizen, and I was able to vote for the very first time in 2008. And it was just amazing to be able to cast that vote and be able to exercise that right when I didn't have that right for many years. And it's something that I have been doing ever since the 2008 election. I have been voting in every single election. whether it's local elections, federal elections, I make sure that I'm voting. And because my family comes from Mexico, we have a mixed status family. There's a lot of my family members that are still, they're not able to vote because of their status. I have several DACA recipients in my family, and I think of the different things that may happen when we have different elected officials making decisions for all of our families. And so they motivate me to vote, even when sometimes I don't feel necessarily enthusiastic about who's on the ballot, but it's just something that I have learned not to take for granted, because the decisions that people make affect all of us regardless of our status, and it's just something that's near and dear to me. And I plan on voting by mail in Nevada, and specifically in Las Vegas. They're mailing out our ballots this week, and I have already been talking to my family members about sitting down and filling out our ballots and dropping them off to make sure that our ballot is counted.
Can I just say something to piggyback on what Cinthia was saying? So my daughter and I were both born here in the United States. I'm a second generation Puerto Rican. So that's like not worrying about being able to vote. That's never crossed my mind until I started working in my community and getting to know people within my community and across the country who have not had that right, who are living here and who are, contributing to the community themselves, but don't have that right. And it was so important. My daughter and I had that conversation actually not too long ago when I expressed to her like how important it is for her to, take this responsibility and with so much weight to it. You know what I'm saying? Like she needs to understand that it is a privilege to be able to do something like getting out to vote. It is a privilege to be in this country and have those what we consider to be simple, those are automatic rights. Like, no, not everybody has those rights. And there are people within our community that still don't have that right. So not only are we making the decision for us, we're speaking on behalf of everyone else in our neighborhoods. So we cannot take that responsibility lightly. And sometimes that could be difficult explaining it to younger people.
It's hard. They don't understand the gravity and the consequences of their choices now and how they will have. I mean, I remember as a college student, I didn't. So it's so important that you're being visible and you're showing up for your family and for your communities in the ways that you are. Thank you. Columba, do you want to share?
Yes. Can you also please repeat the question?
Sure. As a Latina,
I couldn't hear it.
As a Latina, why is voting important to you? And how do you plan to vote this year?
Yes, for me, as a Latina, as a daughter of immigrants, for me, it's crucial to vote in these elections because I know not all my Latino community has the right to vote. So I need to be that voice for them, as Yaritza was mentioning. And not only I'm voting for my family and my community, but for Latinos across the country. And it's now that we know that our healthcare is on the line, our community's health and economic well-being is on the line. And I know that as a mom, I'm looking for a leadership that believes in science, that believes that we have a climate crisis, and also that listens to the science and the public experts. I think that a great example right now is this pandemic. And now more than ever, we know that we need bold leadership that is going to put public experts and scientifics is going to be listening to them when we are in crisis.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your plan to vote this year? Are you voting by mail? Are you going to go on election day to the polls?
So my plan and this past years has been fill out my ballot and take it on the day of the elections. Mm-hmm. And this year is going to be very different. I haven't received my ballot, but as soon as we're done with this interview, I'm going to go to the nearest place to vote. I'm going to take precautions. I'm going to be wearing my mask. I'm going to do anything possible to vote today. And for me, that's my plan.
That's so good. And see, as a busy mom of 3 little ones, you're making it happen. And this is the thing. There are so many barriers that we all kind of face to voting, especially now with the pandemic. We're worried about our own safety, our family's safety, but we have to just make a plan now more than ever. I know here in Arizona that I've always been on the early mailing ballots. And so I'm still waiting for my ballot to come in the mail. My personal plan is to fill out my ballot here at home and then take it to a polling place in person rather than actually mailing it in. That's just what I feel comfortable with this year. Cinthia, Yaritza, what's your plan for voting this year?
I think what we're going to do is just do a drop off at the location.
Okay.
So that for me, it's just so that my daughter and I can kind of get the voter like feel for it, but not necessarily like really get in there and like try to like, around all those folks. But to be honest with you, aside from doing the drop off, I've actually really been considering being a poll worker myself, and be there at the polls just so that way there's no excuse. Like people were there, people were supporting, people were working it. Because we're hearing so many crazy stories now with 7-hour wait longs. You got to come back, or polls being closed and not accessible to those people in those communities, which are the ones that are most affected, right? So just as for right now, just a quick little drop off, but possibly even working.
Yeah. I did hear a few weeks ago that they were looking for poll workers because with the pandemic, obviously a lot of historically poll workers have been retired folks that have lots of time on their hands, but of course they're the most vulnerable to coronavirus. So I signed up as a poll worker. I haven't been called to actually work, but we'll see. Have you heard any, of any barriers in particular in your areas that you are going to help your fellow community members overcome, whether it's elderly folks that need to get their ballot in? Do you know of folks that are in nursing homes that still want to vote but are not sure how because they can't leave?
Yeah, actually, all those issues, big time. I know that here in Florida, we have a huge number of a large population of retirees. And especially like for me personally, I know that there's a large number of veterans who are living in like the domiciliaries or living at an assisted living location. So what some of these veteran organizations are doing is going a little bit above and beyond and making sure that they are like hand delivering some of these ballots and being able to just, pick them up for the veterans and the seniors in the housing here in the state. But it's also about misinformation, right? There's a lot of that going around, and access to those polls. So making sure that there are enough people working them, I think would probably be the biggest barrier that we're seeing right now. But again, we have so many transient folks that are here in the state of Florida, and folks that are moving that don't realize that their vote does count here in the state. That's also another huge point, is to make sure that we're showing them their ownership. Like, take charge. This is our country. This is our state. So making sure that we give people that sense of ownership and the power in their voice, because it doesn't seem like there's a lot of folks that have that sense of confidence.
Columba, what were you going to share?
Yes, I just wanted to say that as an Ecomadre, my plan of vote includes my community, and hosting Cafecitos has the strongest impact right now. Just making sure my Latino community knows that their power and that how important their voice is. And that's why we have also talked with media outlets such as Telemundo, The Guardian, podcasts, where we just want to empower our communities. And that's my plan of vote this year as well. Also, one of the challenges that we had here in Arizona was what the deadline to register to vote was October 5th. And something historic happened when Mi Familia Vota, one of our partnerships, sued the state, saying that sometimes it's hard for our Latino community when we don't have internet, when we don't have even money for gas, when we don't have all the tools, right, to to register to vote, and we won. So I'm happy to share that with the state of Arizona, and because now the deadline is October 23rd. And also, just to show you that the impact that this made in our community, especially in our Latino community, 50,000 people are registered now to vote. So this is huge for Arizona, that we did not forget about our Latino community and that their voices are going to be heard. Just on October 5th, that night, I heard stories of a daughter whose mom wanted to register to vote, and the only reason that she became a citizen was to vote. And she's like, I don't have the tools. I don't have gas money. Her car was she had literally a flat tire, and her mom, she had dialysis, and she couldn't go to register to vote. And this extension meant the whole world, not only for her, but so many Latinos in Arizona. And that was one of the biggest challenges. And that makes me proud. As a mom, I am so proud that so many Latinos are going to have the opportunity to vote in these elections because they're going to make a difference.
Yeah, that's so amazing.
I wanted to add what I'm seeing a lot. I volunteer a lot of my time phone banking for our local candidates, and mostly it's a lot of time spending on the phone telling people about the different options that they can vote, because there's a lot of people that are under the impression that they can only vote by mail. They don't trust the postal service. They're concerned about that. But in Las Vegas specifically, we have 20 drop-off locations separate from polling locations. So charged specifically for dropping off. You just walk in, drop off your ballot, and you're done. And also, our Secretary of State has made it very easy for people that are concerned about tracking their ballot. You're able to track your ballot online, and immediately you'll be able to tell whether or not there was an issue with your signature, and you'll be allotted time to be able to fill out a new one and fix your signature. In Nevada, because we do have amazing leadership, our legislature passed same-day voter registration. So if you are not registered to vote right now and you decide on election day that you do want to vote, you're able to go to any polling location and register that same day, and you'll be given a provisional ballot to cast your vote. One of the things that I am hearing a lot from my neighbors is that they're concerned that their vote isn't going to matter, that the election is already decided. I tell them, no, it is not decided. No. Your vote matters. And it's not just the federal election that's on the ballot, but also a lot of our local races. And I like to tell them about the example of one state senator that won his race by 4 votes. And a lot of people are not aware. And I tell them, look, every single vote that does matter. This state senator is in our state Senate because he was able to get 4 more people to vote for him. Mm-hmm. And I like to use our local elections because we have a city councilwoman in the Las Vegas City Council who won her election by under 200 votes. So a lot of people like to emphasize more on the federal races and the presidential and the federal Senate, but I like to emphasize your local elections matter just as much as well, and we need to make sure we cast our vote.
That's such an important point. I think that there hasn't been nearly enough attention, especially this cycle, on these local races, and so many of the decisions that impact us and our families happen on a local level, especially around issues with clean air. Some of those projects, those are all made on the local level. So it's important for voters to really inform themselves and take time, educate themselves, and encourage their families and their friends and those that maybe don't have cars or a means to get to the polls to just help find a way and inform them of their choices. So that's all really wonderful points that you just shared. Thank you so much. What are you most excited about this election cycle? Like, what's been some of the positive things that you have experienced? I know that sometimes the election cycle brings some really heavy news, and this year has been no different. But there has to be some positivity here. And I think that always makes me feel better. It's good not to just, focus on the negative. What's some of the positive things that you've noticed around voting this year?
For me, has been the millions of people that have either mail in their ballots or vote by person. I think this is historic. Seeing the many people who know that how crucial these elections are, and also what I've seen that it's really exciting for me as a mom. It's seeing my 5-year-old being so involved with these elections and just comment me on how she feels and the importance of voting. I think that's my highlight for me as a mom.
Awesome. How about you, Yaritza?
Sometimes it may be viewed as a bad thing, but everyone has an opinion, and like that's not normal when it comes to elections. For the most part, so many people just don't pay attention. Everyone is finding out information. Everyone is investigating because they're either, even if it's a fact check, but people are finding out. People are getting involved. People are paying attention. How important is that? 2-3 elections ago, not nearly as much buzz, right? This wasn't on. Although like for around elections, and yes, stuff pops up on like social media from time to time, but I'm getting bombarded on every platform of social media. Like, make sure you register to vote. These are the deadlines. There's like legit no excuse for people not to be able to have information. What's important is that we make sure that we let folks know that it's okay that we don't think the same way. That's perfectly fine for us to have different views. It is perfectly fine. And you don't have to vote the same way that your mom voted. You don't have to vote the same way that your neighbor voted. You are voting for what you feel is best and what you think is best on what's going to affect you in the community, right? So like how Columba and Cinthia are both saying, like making sure that you know what's going on at the local level is so key. And I can tell you right now that when I have conversations with my friends, like I even have friends who have become city commissioners here in Central Florida. Like, what? I would have never imagined that I'd be in circles or have friends that were getting involved at this level with this amount of pressure. And it's great. It's great to see that building up to now, to this election, we've had the most colorful like selection of candidates. Like when growing up, we had maybe 1 or 2 women superheroes. Like there's posters. We got posters of Latina Supreme Court justices. We have little kids that are dressing up like Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Like that's amazing to know that we're able to influence. We've had Asians, we have Black people, we have Latinas, we have Latinos that are people that are from all walks of life that are stepping up to the challenge, because we are seeing like, yo, I don't like how this is happening. I don't like what's going on in my town. I want to make a change. My kids are getting sick. Why is that? And people are stepping up. So again, sometimes it might be a little bit combative or hostile, or maybe some people need to learn how to maybe project their information onto others and deliver that information. But it's so great to see so many people getting involved. There's a campaign at every level. You turn the channel on any social media platform, my phone, the commercials, YouTube, you name it. Right now, we're having these conversations. I would have, while I was in the Marine Corps 3 years ago, I would have never assumed that I'd be having these kinds of conversations. I'd never considered me being interviewed for my opinion on what I think is going to happen or what's going to be best for our kids. Like, what a time to fight, right? What a way to be able to repurpose my service from the military now to my community to like sit there and continue this fight for freedom, for the freedom of free, clean air, right?
That's so
Yeah,
true.
I think for me, one of the positive things that I've seen about this election is that more people are talking about climate change and the importance to act now and not wait any longer. I know that speaking with my neighbors, they're concerned about the air quality because of the wildfires that we've had in California. California. The smoke from wildfires has come all the way to Las Vegas, and we're hundreds of miles away from where the wildfires are, but yet we have experienced those effects as well. And for a couple of weeks, the county commission was sending out alerts saying you should stay indoors because of the smoke from the wildfires. And I think because of what we have been experiencing with the wildfires, people are more open to talk about climate change and air quality and how that has a negative effect on our health and how it is a public health issue.
Yes, and also, sorry for me. I think as a woman of faith, just seeing my church so interested in getting to know like all the facts, what's going on, what's on the line for our communities. I think that gets me really excited, knowing that there's not only topic on the line, but more immigrant, DACA, healthcare, immigration, the refugees. So having our community and in my church interested in all those topics, it gets me really excited too for this election.
I'm so glad to hear you mentioned that your faith is so important to you. And I know a lot of these discussions happen in church settings. You know, people outside of their homes, their faith community is their strongest community. And so it's really good to hear that those conversations are happening and they are happening in a positive way. So that's wonderful that you shared that. Thank you. We do need to wrap up here soon. I wanted to ask if there is like one thing that you are planning to do after elections are done. What are you most looking forward to after after your vote is cast?
Staying connected, staying plugged in, and staying active. I really look forward to that because everyone's talking about it. Now it's time, right?
Yep, absolutely. How about you, Cinthia?
Well, in Nevada, yeah, for me, the work isn't over after the election because in Nevada, our legislature meets every odd year. So we're going to start prepping for the legislature and making sure that our issues are talked about, that climate change is an issue that our legislators tackle. We have been working closely with the Nevada's Climate Initiative, which is done through the governor's office. And we have been very closely involved with that process. And we look forward to seeing how that translates to legislative action in 2021. We have also been very, very involved with the local county commission when it comes to transform Clark County and the master plan that the county is currently creating. We have been very vocal about making sure that these sessions are being held in multilingual ways, because at first they only had an English website, same thing with the Nevada Climate Initiative, and because we were very vocal about them not reaching out to the entire population, they now have a Spanish version on both the state and the local website. They are hosting events in Spanish as well, and that was because of the work that we've been doing. So as much as I would love to say I'm going to sleep for 2 weeks, the work is not over because there's a lot more work that we still have to make sure that it's done and that our voices are being heard.
Yep. Oh, so true.
Mm-hmm.
Columba, how about you? What are you looking for? I hear that one of your big initiatives that you work on with your family is to do a lot of tree planting. Oh, but
yes. So if my baby allows, I don't think he will. I would say keep organizing, keep talking to my community, educating them, informing them.
Yes.
Right, baby?
Absolutely.
He's ready for a nap.
Oh, okay. Well,
I feel you, kiddo. Me too.
We are all ready for a nap. And I thank you so much, ladies, for your time and for all of your work, which is so inspiring to all of us. And keep up the good work. And thank you. So nice to meet all of you. I'm really happy to connect.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thanks
Thank
everybody
you.
for joining us for this Cafecito. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much, Nicole, Columba, Yaritza, and Cinthia, as you share your stories and your passion for protecting your children and how motherhood informs everything you do, including casting a vote. Our second segment will dig into the practicalities of voter access in Latino communities. Esther Sosa, project manager of the Environmental Defense Fund's Diverse Partners Initiatives, speaks to Jose Morales, Deputy Director for Voter Protection at Fair Fight Action. The two will share resources and advice for planning your vote and making sure it's counted this election and in every election. Again, if you have comments or questions, please enter them in the comments section during the broadcast, and we will do our best to respond on our social media platforms during this virtual Cafecito presented by Moms Clean Air Force, Ecomadres, and Corazon Latino. Thank you again for joining us, and we hope you enjoy this conversation.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We are very excited to be talking to Jose Morales Jr., who is Deputy Voter Protection Director at Fair Fight Action. Fair Fight Action promotes fair elections, encourages voter participation, educates voters about elections and their voting rights around the country. So without further ado, we will talk to Jose Morales. Welcome, Jose, one more time to our platform. We are very excited to connect with you, ask you, and we have a lot of questions about what's been going on, and hope to pick your brain on voting in November 3rd. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you. I'm excited to be back. Thank you for letting me talk about my favorite thing in the world, which is voting. I promise not to talk your ears off, but I'm happy to answer the questions you have.
Oh, thank you. We have so many questions. First of all, I know that some states have already undergone, already voting, right? What is that looking like on the ground? What do you have to say?
The turnout we're seeing is incredible. It is very clear that there is enthusiasm in every part of the spectrum. I anticipate that this is going to be a high turnout election. And what we're seeing right now is more people taking advantage of the many ways to vote. Since 2016, some states have expanded the ways in which you can cast your ballot early or by mail, basically anything before November 3rd. And what we're seeing right now is voters have taken the time to learn the rules, and they have taken the time to find out what works best for them, especially folks who, are still trying to navigate being in certain spaces during the pandemic and basically going through the transactions of life during the pandemic. So what we see right now is an incredible amount of interest in voting and voting early where that is possible. We're also seeing that, quite frankly, within the Latino community, we're voting. We're voting in a way that I think there was a lot of punditry around whether we'd sit this one out or we're not motivated in the before years, but none of that is bearing out right now. The enthusiasm for what's going on is incredible. And over the next few days, you're going to see states with very high Latino populations, Nevada and Florida, open up in-person early voting. And I think we're going to be able to see more of that going into Monday and then Tuesday and Wednesday as this continues to roll across the country.
Wow, that is very exciting to hear, and it lifts a huge weight out of my heart. So thank you for that.
Yes, really good news. Yeah.
I have been reading a lot about voter suppression. And that it is something that has been happening here in the United States. And I want to get your thoughts on that. What is it exactly for our audience who has not seen it or read about it?
Yeah, it definitely is in the news more than it has been. So to orient what we're talking about when we talk about voter suppression, there's, I would say, 3 different aspects of it. And scholars also take different tones, different definitions with it. But what I would say is anything that limits the ability to get and to stay registered, anything with access to the ballot, be that by mail or in person, and then the ability to have your ballot actually counted. And those are steps along the journey, right? In order to vote, you must be registered. And in order for your vote to count, you have to actually find the way to vote. Is that by mail? Is that by person? There is a web of voter suppression organizations and efforts that has been built through actions and inactions, because a lack of investment is also an action that's aimed at Latinos, at Black folks, at AAPI people, young people, and poor voters, and it disproportionately disenfranchises them. And what I mean by that is it makes it hard to even get registered, or it makes no investment to make it easier to get registered. It makes it easy to lose your registration by being purged, either legally or something that has yet to be defined as legal or illegal. And then it restricts the ways that you can get to the ballot. You know, maybe some voters can vote by mail, but only if you have an excuse or only if you meet the highest federal bar. And then what it looks like when you vote in person. And then there's the ability to have that ballot counted. And one thing that I think a lot of people are learning more about is there are a number of times you may have to vote provisionally, meaning something about the process wasn't 100% clean cut, and they have to have you sign an affidavit, and then you either go back and do what's called curing your ballot, which is where you say, yep, it's me, I voted, I just didn't bring my ID, or I'm a new voter, this is my first time here, I moved during the pandemic, so although I voted provisionally, I am who I say I am, I attest that I am voting as a resident of, you know, wherever I live, and my ballot should count. And usually that's one and done. But what we've seen over the past few years is a super concerted effort to make sure it is harder and harder for people of color, young people, and poor people to not even access those pathways to cure their ballot, but just get to the ballot. And what you've seen over the past few months is a very concerted effort for people who love voting and are pro-voter to open those doorways up, especially via litigation. There are some states that are just as log-jammed as Congress, so they're not making it as easy to vote, while also making sure that many modes of voting are available to Latinos and other people of color. But they're trying their hardest, and some gains have definitely been won. And then there's also some of the regular implementation that election officials they work so hard to make sure that they're getting it right. The ability to cast your mail ballot and have it count. And if something's wrong with your ballot, you know, a signature's missing or doesn't look right, they are also trying to work very hard to make sure you can cure that ballot. There is a lot that I think people can proactively do up front, though, is even if you know, I think there's a lot that goes around where it's like register to vote, and you're like, oh, I did that once, I'm good. I would say go ahead and check. It happens, right? There's a concerted effort on the voter suppression side to remove people from the rolls that are disproportionately Black, brown, young, and poor. There's also clerical errors. There's also human error. And these people work very hard in our county or municipal elections offices. But just in case a mistake has happened, but also just for your peace of mind, I would check your voter registration. So check your voter registration so you can make your plan to vote. The easiest way I would do that is to go to iwillvote.com. No matter where you are in the United States, you can use that tool to register or check your registration. So you want to make sure you're active, that you're registered where you live, and that you have a plan to vote early and by mail if you can, in person if that's your jam. And then you want to go ahead and turn around and tell everybody else around you to do the same, because the sunlight here is the best disinfectant.
So iwillvote.com to make sure you are registered to vote, even if you already did it.
That's right.
That's good to know. And is this site in Spanish?
It should be, yeah. This has been a multi-year effort in order to make sure that it has the most information. And it doesn't even have, what I will say is, it doesn't just have registration information. It actually has the locations of where some people can go vote early or put their vote in a drop box for a state that has them. And I would say that is a great way for people who are like, I don't want to put my ballot in the mail, but I'm not feeling great about voting in person, or I just haven't made up my mind yet. If you're trying to limit that person-to-person contact, you can get your ballot in the mail and then go to iwillvote.com and find out where the nearest ballot box is, where you can have no person contact, drop it off, and even track your ballot through iwillvote.com for the states that have built that data infrastructure.
I love the no person contact. Thank you for including that in there.
Of course, yeah.
I do have one concern. When I think of voter suppression, I feel, given what's been in the news and stand for arms, if, you know, you're calling people to check on the polls to make sure there's no voter fraud, even though we know voter fraud hasn't really happened here in the U.S., or it's very little. What are the options if people feel unsafe to vote?
I will say voting is such an important thing, and to put your safety first is equally as important. Like, if you are scared for any reason, whether it's COVID, whether it's something you're hearing on the news, I totally hear you. And there are millions of people who have been working since before the pandemic broke out to protect you. What I will say is, if you have literally any question, and there's no question that's too dumb, I would call 866-OUR-VOTE. This is a hotline that is run by the Lawyers Committee, and they're an election protection network that's incredible. They know election law better than anyone else. I will also say, if you speak Spanish, it's 888-BEBOTA. That's VEYVOTA. And what I want you to know as a voter is that there are so many people who are also signing up to be there at early vote or on election day to make sure that you are not intimidated and that you feel as comfortable as possible. And one of the ways I would say is a great way to show up for your community is to be a poll worker yourself. This is open to anyone who meets the eligibility requirements of being a voter most of the time, depending on where you live. You can sign up at powerthepolls.org in order to get involved, and most places are still taking applications. So much staff power goes into making an election hum that we've never thought about before. But similar to everything with the pandemic, a lot of that changed due to just the labor supply. And because a lot of the people who ran elections were elderly and therefore at risk for the pandemic, it's up to young people to step up, or anyone who's low risk to step up and be a poll worker. There's also a way to volunteer with a voter protection team so that you can learn about what's available in your state. And what I mean by that is, because election laws are different everywhere, states take the time to get it right. So if you're interested in learning more about what it means to join a voter protection team, go to fairfight.com, because we need people everywhere to stand up and say, I am ready to protect my community when it comes to voter suppression, but also making sure they feel valued when they cast that ballot. People deserve to be cheered on and supported when they go to the polls. So we and many other allies in this space are working to make sure that whether you want to be a poll worker, whether you want to be a poll observer from outside and cheer people on or report anything up that is rightfully seen as intimidation, but also the ability to work remotely and field questions for folks who are like, I've never voted here before. I'm really scared. I don't know the rules. Can you tell me what ID I need? If I need an ID, do I need to bring something else in order to go? The questions are rightfully out there because the processes have changed so much since the pandemic began. So I would say, remember that you can always call the hotline at 866-OUR-VOTE or 888-BEBOTA. And what I would encourage anyone, even if you're afraid to call someone on the phone because talking to a stranger is scary, these folks are ready and willing to help you no matter what. And if talking to someone on the phone is not your jam, go to fairfight.com and find out how you can connect with us electronically about getting involved in a voter protection space. This is really important. It's available to people who are lawyers and not lawyers.
Well, that's fantastic. So 888 Ve y Vota or 866 I will vote.
Our vote.
Our vote. Okay, perfect. Yeah. Thank you. So you're saying that you can get paid to protect, to make sure that voters feel protected to vote, or that you can also volunteer, if you want to be a guiding person to help.
Yeah. What I mean by that is a lot of the rules depend on where you are, but lots of poll workers get paid. And I know that right now this is a very hard time for especially our people. So the ability to make some money and make this election sing is an incredible deal. And I would encourage every single person, especially if you speak Spanish, to be a poll worker. That is one of the best ways to help our people at the polls when they need it. Because sometimes you don't know until you're holding that ballot what your question is.
Got it. And for that, is it only on November 3rd that you could be a poll worker, or could you be a poll worker?
You could do it today, wherever people are voting. You know what I mean? Yeah, the need is current and it is active.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And you've outlined a couple of great resources for us already. iwillvote.com. I wrote this down.
Yes.
Or the powerthepolls.org. Are there other resources you would like to share with us about?
I would say fairfight.com is another way to lend your volunteer experience. We are building and have continued to build a network of people who are interested in doing any sort of volunteers that come up, not just within Georgia, although we are a Georgia organization, and that's where our founder, Stacey Abrams, has started this path. There's so many ways to contact voters from the comfort of your home that if you're looking to stay safe but stay connected, Fairfight would love to have your volunteer time, because this also isn't going to be over on election night. The absentee ballot counting process will take some time, as it often does. But even outside of that, Georgia is the home to 2 U.S. Senate runoffs, possibly. There's one regularly scheduled Senate race. The contenders right now, whoever wins will get a 6-year term. And then there's one to fill out the remainder of a term. That may go as far as January 5th. So we would absolutely love any volunteers who are looking for many different ways to get involved and stay involved going up until the election and then through the election into January.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for the time and the resources. I feel well informed. Is there anything else that you would like to add that I missed?
I just want to say,
asking.
No, I mean, you are asking all the right questions. There's no dumb question. There's nothing more important than casting your ballot in November. So there's no question that you should have before going in the polls, unless your question is, who am I voting for? That's totally fine. But how to vote, we want to help you build the plan that's best for you. And I will specifically say for our community, which is large, which is growing, which is transient, and is really making strides in our Congress, in state legislators, in city councils, and city commissions. Right now, we are at a point where it is on each of us to make sure our registration is up to date and that we know exactly how we're going to cast our ballot. And one thing I want to say is make an event out of it. It's been a long time since I think any of us have had the opportunity to be with our friends or see a lot of our family if we're not already potting. But it is important for you to connect in the safest ways possible to create community and accountability around voting. My ancestral home of Puerto Rico has some of the highest civic participation rates of any country, let alone being part of the United States. And that's really important. And the way that we've achieved that is by making community events out of civic events. So I would love for you to do the same, whether you're voting for climate, whether you're voting for voting rights, or whether you're voting for the little ones in your family. Right now, you need to make sure that you have your plan down. You know when, where, how you're going to get there, but most importantly, who's going to come with you. Share your voting plan. Let us know what it is online. We love seeing the I voted stickers as much as we love getting them. So so I totally get it if people are like, I need to go vote in person because I need to go get that sticker. I 100% respect it. Just stay safe when you do it. If you have any questions whatsoever, literally anything, 866-OUR-VOTE is there for you, and you can always connect with us on fairfight.com. Put together your voting plan, put together someone else's voting plan, and let us know if you have any questions at any point in the process.
I love it. Putting the fun back into voting.
I love it.
Feel like it's been sucked out, and we love fun and we love community.
Absolutely.
And bringing our community together, right? This is a thing that we're doing for each other.
Yes.
So
exactly.
calling your tia, your uncle, right? Your grandma, and being and having, it's a way to connect. Right, but also a way to be like, yes, what is your plan, right? What have you voted? So thank you for those words, and thank you for being talking to us again today.
Thanks so much for having me. Stay safe.
Look forward to it. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.